Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our 34th edition of the Sunday webinar series. And it's indeed a special one as we have a very important or relevant topic to cover. And we have got a very esteemed group of panelists today, right, to be steered by, and again, an august presence of a kind of a very renowned moderator. We'll reveal that very soon. Um, so our today's topic is GCC and startup, whether these are resulting in collaboration or competition. Now, we are at a fascinating inflection point in the global technology landscape, where global capability centers, in short, GCCs, are rapidly evolving from traditional delivery units to strategic innovation powerhouse driving AI, also right to product engineering and digital transformation at scale. At the same time, the startups are pushing the boundaries with speed, experimentation, and disruptive thinking, often redefining entire industries. Now, what makes this moment even more compelling is the overlap. Now, as GCCs are becoming more agile, product driven, and innovation focused, the startups are scaling faster, partnering with enterprises, and entering mainstream ecosystems. So, this convergence raises some powerful questions. Are GCCs and startups are co-creating the future together, or are they competing for the same talent, ideas, and investment? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of the innovation ecosystem? So, with this, I will go ahead and introduce our esteemed group of panelists. So, let me take this moment to introduce our first panelist for this session, Mr. Omlan Shorkar. He's a leader in retail, CPG, and digital commerce L&T technology services. Omlan is a seasoned practice leader with deep expertise in retail, CPG, and digital commerce, driving large-scale domain-led digital transformation. He's passionate about merchandising and supply chain and use of digital tools and techniques to make business sustainable from economic, societal, and environmental perspective. He brings growth-oriented business consulting, digital transformation, and GTM strategy with strong industry experience, especially in retail, CPG, and logistics. Omlan is an outcome driven leader with expertise towards establishing a performance driven culture that ensures accountability, empowerment, and personal ownership. A keen planner and a strategic implementer, his expertise include business practice and vertical from scratch to a significant $1 million run rate profit vertical. Omlan has worked with Tier 1 global retail, CPG, and logistics client in North America, Western Eastern Europe, Nordic, Asia Pacific, and Middle East. Omlan is a postgraduate in management from Indian Institute of Management, Indore, and holds a Bachelor of Engineering degree from Jadavpur, Kolkata. He's an alumni of Accenture Infosys Consulting as well. So with this, let's move on, and I would be introducing our next speaker, Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, Solutions, Partnership, and Advisory Lead Senior Director position, LTM. Somnath Chatterjee is an accomplished business and functional consulting leader with over 19 years of experience. He specializes in managing consulting portfolios, domain advisory, solution creation, and strategic partnership. His extensive expertise has been focused on driving results for Fortune 500 organizations across the retail, travel, and hospitality and real estate sectors globally, including the North America, United Kingdom, continental Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific regions. Somnath has a proven record of executing complex consulting engagement and leading innovation programs that empowers the clients to define strategic roadmaps for implementing and rolling out their key initiatives. Throughout his career, he has successfully led high-impact initiatives spanning customer experience and engagement, operational optimization, partner evolution and collaboration, and core system modernization. Welcome, Somnath, to the discussion. Moving on with our next panelist, Kaushik Sarkar. He's Head of Technology, Platform and Product, MJ Pro, M Junction. Kaushik Sarkar is a technology leader an enterprise architect specializing in digital transformation, cloud native platforms, and AI driven innovation. Currently a senior executive at M Junction Services Limited, he has led large scale enterprise initiatives across platform engineering, API ecosystem, and data intelligence. An alumnus of Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, Kaushik brings a strong blend of academic rigor and industry expertise with a passion for building scalable systems and mentoring future technologists. Finally, our last panelist for the discussion, Rajiv Bhattacharya. He's an insurance technology leader in Capgemini. So Rajiv is a seasoned technology leader in Capgemini, specializing in insurance domain with extensive experience of driving large-scale digital transformation programs and modernizing core insurance platform. He has mentored large teams and spearheaded complex initiatives across various platforms like Guidewire and Majesco, and platform integration for major insurers spanning multiple high-stake programs for major clients delivering scalable enterprise solutions. Rajiv is enthusiastic about future of insurance and how the markets are innovating with the adoption of AI-enabled accelerators to enhance efficiency and make data-driven business decisions and design product and processes around them. Welcome, Rajiv, to the discussion. And finally, no panel discussion can be successful without a strong moderator, because he is the main person who will be steering the conversation. So it takes me extreme honor and privilege for me to introduce Anshuman Bhattacharya, Head of AI Solution, Adani AI Labs. Anshuman Bhattacharya, commonly known as Anshu, he's a seasoned AI ML entrepreneur and professional with 2 decades of success. He founded CBA Analytics, which was later acquired by the Adani Group in December 2022. Anshu has deep expertise and experience consulting Fortune 200 and top APAC enterprises, and he pioneered ML adoption of SMBs globally. He's an avid technology enthusiast focused on leveraging advanced AI ML to drive the client success. Anshu advocates for using AI ML to increase the rate of data consumption to generate real-time actionable insights for greater global efficiency. He's a generative AI adoption champion and advocates ethical and responsible AI development. With this, we are passing it to Anshuman to steer the conversation moving forward. Over to you, Anshuman.
Thank you, Shubhabrata. It is an honor to be part of this distinguished panel, and I look forward to learn a lot from each of them. Today, we are standing at a fascinating crossroads in our technology world, especially in India. We have seen the advent of GCCs starting, say, 20 years ago, while the word of GCC might have coined maybe 5 years ago. For years, in the initial years of the GCCs being set up, and many years after that, we saw GCCs primarily through a lens of cost arbitrage only. GCC means you can get your things done at a cheaper rate from a faraway place. They were designed to be the back offices for bringing in efficiency in the enterprises. But if I look at for the last few years, we see that this script has flipped. Today, GCCs are not only the cost centers, but also transforming the enterprises into highly sophisticated innovation hubs, driving global products, driving business functions from here, and driving their digital agendas. At the same time, India has, if not matured, at least a highly maturing startup ecosystem, which is agile, disruptive, and moving at a pace that often many of the traditional large enterprises can't even think of. They live breathless with this, with the speed. So the big question today we are exploring is GCCs and startups. Is this a story of competition or of collaboration? In one corner, we see that our GCCs are enabling large enterprises to compete with nimble disruptors by building tech, deep products, internal products which builds capabilities in them. On the other side, we see that the same enterprises also realize that they can't really build everything in-house if they want to keep up with the speed of the sectors, especially in consumer, retail, digital commerce, branchless banking, insurance, and like that. So the question we ask here is that are the startups competing for the same digital talent which is available here and the innovation budgets of the GCCs? Or are they the secret sauce that allows a massive GCC-led ecosystem to stay agile amidst the heavy regulation and compliance? To help us navigate these questions, we have a very distinguished panel today. Through them, we'll be looking at these questions through multiple lenses. First, the lens of how a partnerships and advisory can show us the big picture. We'll focus on certain industries like retail, e-commerce, logistics, insurance. And finally, the discussion is about the product and the platform strategy to understand and know more about the build versus buy dilemma. We structured the discussion today like this. First, we'll have two rounds of deep dive questions answers for each of them, which will be followed by a rapid fire round for each of them at the end. So we'll start with Somnath, who also has been my colleague during our early days in the industry. So my first question to you, Somnath, is you are a leader in the uh, partnership advisory space. From this vantage point, how do you see that GCCs are evolving from cost centers to innovation hubs? And a follow-up to that is that how do you see the startups are collaborating into this?
Well, first of all, let me thank Subroto and AI Agile Synergy for inviting me to be a part of, giving me a chance to be a part of this great discussion that we are forcing. And all of you, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to share the same dais, same space to discuss this, and of course our audience. So coming back to the question, I think the question is two-part, right? So you asked me first that how this evolution is happening, right, for the GCCs. And given that this evolution is happening, where do these startups fit in? Like, what is exactly that sweet spot that they are fitting in, right? So to answer this, let me take you, and I know there's a limitation of time given that we are all talking. So let's quickly go to the history of this development. Okay, so if you look at early 90s, we used to call it offshore back office, right? 2000 to 2010, shared service centers, right? 10 to 16, digital enablement centers. 16 to 2020, there was a wave of COEs, center of excellences. 20 to 24 for all this COVID thing, remote workplace, right? So all of this is giving us one central idea: save cost. Correct. Up until this point, whatever the history we traced, the central idea is bring cost efficiency, right? You'll have to have high cost efficiency delivering certain things, but the value of those things in all this sequence of orders was less. So if you think of a 2 by 2 matrix, right? On one hand, let's call it the y-axis to be the value, right? The things that is we are generating: low value, high value, right? Business impact value. And on the x-axis, if we take an independent variable, which is cost effectiveness, right? That is, which is in our control, correct? That is driven by this. So if we simply design this, and cost effectiveness, let's call it low cost effectiveness to high cost effectiveness. If you see, the journey starts from high cost effectiveness and low value, correct? That means somewhere your the quadrant may be on your right hand side, however way you design it, right? And all these organizations, and when I say organizations, let's take some big names: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Walmart, right? JPMC, Goldman Sachs, even in my own domain, travel and hospitality, Marriott, right? McDonald's, PepsiCo, Shell, HSBC, Bosch, anywhere. Like, this is across the spectrum. So if you see this, the journey, these organizations have understood that the next big thing for them to be sustainable in terms of business going forward is the business value, right? So low cost items may not be able to cut the chase, correct? Now, what was so wrong? They were doing these low cost, low value things here, but then definitely they were doing the high value things in their own land, correct? But over a period of time, from when they started, early 90s up until this point, they understood one thing is very central. In all these places where these GCCs, where they used to offshore it, let's call it, the top destinations like Poland, Vietnam, Mexico, Philippines, and needless to mention, India, right? Our own country. They understood talent pool in India is really strong. These guys are only going on site. They are doing good things. These guys at offshore are equally capable of doing good things. So why not generate high value from these places, right? So here is this journey from a high cost effectiveness and low value. Low value means low value business impact to a high value business impact. But then the journey is not so easy, right? When any organization would start doing this, the first thing that they will have to compromise is cost effectiveness, because cost will come down, effectiveness will come down, cost will go up as you are trying to deliver high value. Why? Because you will need technology, you will need the know-how, you will need the DNA, right? It is not easy to have all these things without having the escalating your cost, correct? So this is exactly the sweet spot where where today's GCCs have understood that we will have to get partners from outside. We'll have to have the ecosystem, the power of the ecosystem. And when we say startup, it need not be just a startup company. It can be an incubator or a lab, innovation lab within an academy. And I'll give you a few examples of such sort, where companies are trying to do such things with IITs and triple ITs, right? So when we look at this ecosystem of generating value, right, there comes this shift of, offshore back office to GCCs, right? So there are a few shifts that are happening. Let us quickly understand the shifts, right? Deep STEM talent pool. So the mindset is shifting from cheap labor, right, to talent pool. From responsive, ramp up and ramp down. I think we all in IT industry have heard of this term called ramp up and ramp down. What does it mean? Things are at your disposal, are easy to be baked in and taken out. Baked in and taken out, correct? From that, the language is shifting to retention and upskilling. Have you noticed these changes are happening in the way that industry leaders are speaking, right? Then some proactive steps have also been taken up by our government. For example, tax incentives, SEZs, infra, simplified regulatory processes. For example, in Maharashtra, Gujarat, MP, right? And to top it up, innovation is the key. Everybody is understanding in bits and pieces we'll have to innovate. Whether we innovate in engineering or whether we innovate in business, correct? Whether we do it at a level where we are trying to build a solution or whether we do it at a level in the solution itself, correct? So this entire shift is very, very critical, and it is actually shaping up. Organizations like behemoths, like even Microsoft, they are understanding that we can utilize this talent pool. And then, so I was just thinking that if we look from a GCC perspective, right, then GCCs have got, things like, I would say, access to next gen tech, minimal investment, faster GTM. These are going on in their mind. How can I go to market faster? because they have got a DNA of a huge company. While they have been there, done that, but they are sluggish. Their decision-making processes, if we can use this term called enterprise bureaucracy, correct? It is very much in these
Right.
big organizations. How can they move faster? On the other hand, look at how the startups, what is there in for the startups to actually collaborate? Startups has got access to the next gen market, right? Next gen tech, minimal investment. They can get investments from that company and they can attain scale, correct? So here we see that there is a confluence, there is a win-win scenario, and not that everything will materialize overnight, but the situation is very right. Situation is very conducive for both the GCCs to move ahead uh, into innovation, right, from where they started way back in the 90s. And while doing so, they understand that we'll have to have the power of the ecosystem. And a few examples that I came up with, apart from the ones that are closer to my domain, are that Boeing's build program that have started with IITs. We may not be knowing it, but it is really, really shaping up good. City India's innovation lab with the fintech startups, right? Nordisks with the triple IT Bangalore. Bosch is doing it with the in the field of IoTs with the local players, mostly based out of Hyderabad, right? So I would say that this is the right time. And the journey, if we have to understand the journey from high cost effectiveness, low impact business value to high impact business value. And my costs are escalating. How do I keep a tab on cost yet deliver high impact? I'll have to use the power of the ecosystem. I'll have to collaborate with somebody who has got it in its DNA so that I bring the expertise of scale, they bring the expertise of agility, right? And that's where I think it makes more sense to discuss this in our Agile forum. So I would say uh, situations are conducive and it's looking greener. But before I leave this answer and proceed on with the other questions, I would say there are a few attributes that needs to be taken care of in terms of, because these are failure attributes. First, lack of long-term vision. You start a thing, as we say, if there is no commitment, we will never get started. But if there is no consistency, we will never reach the finishing line. So if you look at these big behemoth companies, right, they start it with a big bang, but somewhere down the line, I have seen it to be it fizzes out. The second is the clarity of the roles. When you say it is not my offshore back office, it is my GCC, it is my innovation hub, you need to be very clear. The leadership need to be very clear in their mind. What are the roles we are defining there in my GCC? Are they the order takers? Am I going to value them for their output or am I going to value them for their input as well? That is important, right? And then comes the commitment, right? As we said, and your ability to manage distributed teams, right? Last but not least is the resistance to the cultural change, because you see what you are is, if you look at big companies, how they have been big, because they have built one product, they have seen it to the end, right? So their steps are very cautious, correct? That's how they have built the empire. But if you look at startups, they are hungry, right? They are they're ferocious, right? They are moving at a great speed. They never fear to fail, right? Because they have got nothing much to lose. They have got everything to gain. So it is not easy to bring this mindset suddenly. It is not an overnight process. There comes the importance of defining the roles, right? You will have to have a champion in your organization in the GCC to be able to doing that collaboration. So I would say that would be my answer.
Brilliant. We actually started on a very high note today with such a detailed and insightful answer to our first question. And thank you, Somnath, for all the detailing you have done. We have been talking about innovation and agility uh, and focus. Uh, Let me shift my gear and take some more challenging questions. And I'll reach out to Rajiv. And Rajiv, you are from the insurance industry, which we has been known for its own regulations and compliances driven, which is kind of a slow adopter of innovation. Uh, How do you see that and this innovation can impact insurance companies in specific uh, through this GCC startup collaboration or any of the GCC startup ecosystem model you feel?
Yeah, uh, very good morning to everyone, all the panelists and all the guests here. At the outset, I would like to thank Shubhabrata for this, uh, uh, experience. So, to answer your question, Anshuman, I think your question is quite valid from how we have seen traditionally the insurance industry being. But having said that, right, insurance has historically been very risk averse due to the strong regulatory bodies and the compliance and and with the actuarial discipline and all of that. But what is changing now? And I will, if you see in one of the recent surveys, we have seen that most of the large insurance companies of the world, around 89% of them, around 89% of insurance companies are really willing to, collaborate and co-create with the startups. They know that if they, do not change now or do not invent new ways of doing the work, and when technology is available, we have AI, we have all the models of the this AI models and all, so they want to invest there and they want to grow from there. So what has happened is that now this GCC ecosystem, what most of the organizations are trying to build now, and as Shomnath has already said, so earlier offshoring was from a cost arbitrage point of view only. Now offshore or the GCC has slowly changing and they are becoming the value creators, right? So what has the insurance industry done is that they have started to view GCCs like the startup hubs where they are more agile and they're trying to de-risk innovations in insurance industry by doing various innovations in their GCCs and with the collaboration of various startups as well. It is not that everything is in house, right? Everything is in their own GCC environment. They are trying to collaborate and experiment and come up with different solutions, different products, different AI based models for the risks models, the predictive you know models for the underwriters, areas like detection of the fraud, or areas like say claim settlement. So these are the things where GCCs are gaining importance and they are being valued and they are calling the shots, and they are uh, you know uh, co-creating with various insurtechs. So in India, if I say from an India standpoint, India has a fairly mature insurtech startup ecosystem. Mainly based out of Bangalore, uh, Hyderabad, and Gurgaon. So where every large organization, company, insurance organizations are collaborating with them. I know, and it is the information is available in the public domain. Uh, you know, a large insurance company ran around six accelerator, mm, startups with six accelerator modes with the various startups, and they have done they have redesigned their reinsurance models. So basically what has happened is that the GCCs have become the controlled innovation sandboxes. That is point number one. Now the second point is that all the GCCs are also investing into various labs, various innovation hubs, right? So that they build the product here with an agility and with with less of regulatory and the and the compliance pressures, because they're using data which is sandbox data, which is not the real CPII data. So they are using that data to define the models and to build the models, right? And they are trying to their accelerator and the what should I say, the venture solutions, they are combining and building various products in offshore, in the GCCs. And thirdly, as I said, they are uh, you know investing in various startups across the global market. Say, for example, there are the new ways of doing the work, like embedded insurance platforms, right? Or going to the new distribution models or specialized risk based products. Let's say, for example, right now, if I give a small example, right now, you have a users based insurance now is gaining a huge popularity, right? If you say, for example, if you have a car and you based on your usage of the car, whether you do it in city driving or you take the car out to the highways and all. So usage based insurance models and how AI is used to predict the risks and do the underwriting for that. So that has gained a lot of popularity, and that is being used by many companies. And the other thing is that uh, say, for example, there is a concept now which is slowly coming in, is that the capability as a service, right? Where you are just giving various capabilities. So the small startup organizations, they are building various capabilities, say a predictive risk model. Say, again, I would give an example, right? If you have if you are going to underwrite for a property insurance, now the data for the property is available in the public domain. You get all the information of the property, you know uh, you know which is there with the property regulated bodies. Then that area, the location, the history of the property, whether is it prone to any, or has there been any history of any fire incidents or anything. The location, what is the probability of having a theft or a burglary around that area. The climate of this place, whether it is prone to typhoons or to floods. So every bit of data is available in different systems publicly. So what AI model can do is that pull in the data from all of this, build a predictive model for the underwriter, even to a point that it can flag the top risks, and it can fill out a say draft underwriting form for the underwriter to just then the underwriter can come in, see, and then take the final decision. So what an underwriter used to take about, if not a few hours, if not a few days, maybe a few hours to do, can be done in a couple of minutes. So all these different integration calls or different integration points, if I may be a little bit more technical, if you have a MCP based agentic AI ecosystem, which many of the startups are doing, then you can do that very easily. So coming back to the original question from Shuman, that the insurance industry, even the large insurers, like the behemoths, they know that the traditional method of doing insurance or selling business, even building new products, right? Building new products, understanding the mindset of the people of the changing times of the Gen Zs, how do they view insurance? What are the kind of coverages they look at? So that kind of analysis can also be done by AI models, and which are in process. So various insurance companies are investing on them, and they are generating new products also in their GCC, in their innovation hub. So GCCs and the large insurance companies are investing a huge now on the GCCs, and they understand that GCCs partnering with startups, co-creating new products, new models, predictive, analysis, and they are going to the market with all of this. So
Thank you.
it is a good thing that has happened. It is a change that we all are going through, and I see that as a very positive change.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Uh, it's quite reassuring that traditional industries like insurance is also adopting the agility of the startups and GCCs and collaborating and co-creating. Now, I would turn to Omlan, who comes from another industry, which we always feel that at the forefront of innovation before the public, the retail and digital industry. Uh, Omlan, retail and digital industry, we have always seen as the forefront of the disruptions. Uh, Most of the innovative companies today we see in India, from food delivery to taxi booking, cab booking to tickets, to events and everything, they are the pioneer of innovation and disruption. How do you see that the global uh, retail and digital companies are adopting the GCCs as well as the startup ecosystem? What is your view on that? And if you can share with a few examples.
Absolutely, Anshuman. I think this is very pertinent question. Um, but before getting into the question, let me just thank to the organizing committee for inviting me, for having me in this conversation. It is really an honor for me. I would like to congratulate also my fellow panelists for engaging and participating in this to this initiative for the current and the upcoming lots. The topic that we have chosen today is very relevant. It is very contextual and apt with the latest disruption that is happening in the industry. I'm sure that post the discussion, the audience will take away some tangible thoughts or ideas and get benefit in their respective professional journey. So the question that you have asked that from the perspective that how GCCs and startup they collaborate or they compete, what is the current scenario or current thoughts? So what I will do is I'll just give it a little bit, take it to little bit to the fundamentals that how GCCs and startups are actually meaning. So they are actually structurally different entities built for a very different purposes, actually, to be honest. So if you look at from a GCC perspective, at the fundamental level, GCCs are enterprise owned. They are long-term capability engines. They look to protect the enterprise data, IPs and a brand. They own critical platforms, design and institutionalize innovation at scale across the geographies. The cross borders can happen. Uh, Multiple different business units can be cluttered to one specific entities and the customers. Traditionally, we call GCCs as the back office. If you go to the, I think some one of my earlier panelists has spoken about the historical paradigm shift that GCCs has happened since 1990. So it was initially bit a cost center we talked about. Then the transition has happened. But what we mean about the startups? Startups are always as a venture backed. Right? All the Series A, B, C, or the P backed firms, they are opportunity driven entities. More actually move fast with a very minimal constraint. And that's why some of my fellow panelists talked about the talent. We can talk about more in terms of the difference in terms of how they operate and why they attract different same talent pool but with a different intention. Then I talk about more from a problem solving skill. They solve a very narrow problem, very business compelling, but not at the scale of GCC want to cater. They pivot as a business model very quickly. So this is the fundamental difference. When I talk about this fundamental difference, then what could be the reason for a collaboration? What could be the win-win situation? Uh, uh, is there some shorter form? There is an overlap. Of course, there are overlaps. So basically, GCCs and startups can compete, can collaborate. It's based on the nature what they do. But currently, in the present context, they are moving away from a competitive model. When they started with a competitive model, now they are moving more of a collaborative platform. Why they do that? The reason is for a startup perspective, they can get access to the enterprise client. They can access to different data sets, more enterprise-wide validations. They have very lucrative funding from the GCCs. Their opportunity to scale to the product globally. All these are actually on a platter when they do a collaboration with the GCC. What could be in for a GCC to collaborate with a startup? Access to their niche tech environment. Startups is always at the top level. Beach. I talk about means 15 years ago when I start first working with the NVIDIA. You won't believe that how much technically agile they are. They are sophisticated systems at that point in time. Now, you in Costa, you talk about Sarvam, that is actually a direct competition with Anthropic, probably India's first agentic AI platform, which is completely indigenous. So their tech environment is unparalleled compared to any others. Their rapid disruptions, very minimal constraints, and R&D efficacy. That's the way built for the GCCs. Now, if I talk about from which scenarios they compete and which scenarios they actually collaborate. So they compete in the structurally fundamentally two different areas. When their digital is actually I talk of from a FMCG perspective, retail and FMCG. Uh, Startups is actually looking more from an experience layer, changing the perspective. So, for example, apps, anything on the application perspective, direct to consumer, storefronts, all these virtual different stores, hyper personalization engine, anything on the revenue increment channel, more from a consumer perspective, where the startups is actually very strong. But when there is an enterprise respond to the core, this is the digital spine, let's say SCM, anything on specific on the loyalty, price changes, promotion, where they specifically GCCs will have the more stronghold. They don't want to dilute the brand something to the third parties. So anything on the experience layer, GCC can build their own team or they can involve a third party as a startup. There they compete. So, for example, I will give you two scenarios. One is from a Walmart. You know the space. I forgot the name. Space. I think it is Space Qubit. Space Qubit program. There, GCCs, specifically Walmart, does two things. One is they change their more from a demand forecasting engine. I will not take the name of which the GCs, which the startups they involve, but demand forecasting is they build by themselves because that is their core, fundamentally core. Their brand, loyalty, customer affiliations, all involved in terms of a demand forecasting. Everything goes wrong, there is a ripple effect within the supply chain. But when they do for a storefronts, specific customer shaping program problems, uh, that problems to be solved, they involve the startups to build for them. So that is done for Walmart. Then one is for more from a Target. So Target did their customer journey problem and some say from the procurement where they involve the OpenAI. The reason being anything on the customer front, Of course, there is a problem in terms of if there is an NPS score is going to be jeopardized if some problem happens when the customer facing problems. But the customer center, which is more from a outside of their core business areas, they give it to OpenAI to do the more IVR, right? All these in your third-party telephonic conversation that happens. That telephonic conversation through an audio recognition system, it does through an OpenAI's platform that has been developed by in partnership with OpenAI. Target did that, but their core fundamental of promotion, pricing, and logistic changes, they did it by themselves. So that's the area the differentiation happens from a competition perspective. Now, what I will talk about the collaboration. Collaboration, you always remember, or you can that is the current perspective trend that startup excel always at the pilot, GenAI excel at the industrialization. So GCCs increasingly run their technical pilots with the startup, sim with the Tesco that has happened. Tesco's uh, have their own, right? Tesco Hindustan Center currently, erstwhile it is more often their cost center perspective. So they run multiple different pilots with their their own funded startup setup. Some collaboration with the different IITs and NITs they do, and these pilots they run within the Tesco environment for scale, for competition, and for resilience. And when there is a rollout globally, if value is proven, that's where they collaborate with the startups. Some with the Tesco example. When there is a co-create, this is also from a Tesco perspective. Tesco's announced plans to actually white label their AI solutions they built in-house within their different startup ventures, and they white label globally. If there is a market, they believe there is a market is there for their own engineer solution that can be licensed to the broader market, and they do that. That is more of a collaboration to a co-create journey. So that's the way I look at it at this point, the collaboration and co-create and the competition perspective. But I'll just close it out to the perspective that it all depends on the need. There is no blanket answer for their journey. It is an ever-changing world. Currently, the startups and the GCCs are collaborate. I think there could be a third model is going to be emerged in near future with the rapid disruptions that are happening.
Okay, thank you, Amlan. Great views, great examples. Interestingly, I was part of few such initiatives with the companies you have named. I also started and built my career on retail, CPG, analytics, AI. I'm pretty much aware of this, but this is a very good addition to the audience. Now I'll go to my last, but not the least, panelist, Kaushik from M Junction. Uh, Kaushik, my question to you is simple. How do you see a product-led GCC performing or collaborating with the startups than a traditional services-led GCCs? What are your views?
Yeah, thank you, Anshuman. Thank you, everyone, for being here a Sunday morning. And I'm getting a lot of insights and a lot of knowledges. And I hope like the audience is also getting a good insights about the GCC. Yes, my point is little bit different. Like now with GCC itself, we are talking about uh, whether that the product-led GCCs and compared to the service-led GCCs, which one is more innovative? So I think the biggest shift is what we are seeing is not just a structural; it's basically a fundamental changes in the mindset. The reason is like in case of whenever it is coming up into that the service list or the traditional GCC model, what happens like in of traditional GCCs, the team basically working on a very limited with some predefined task that has been given to them with the limited context. Like they are not aware of whatever context that has been given, like some sort of small scale development from that compared to that entire enterprise applications, right? However, in case of like it is coming into the product led GCCs, the fundamental shifts is that they are actually completely taking care of the entire products as a ownerships rather than an execution. So in that case, it is coming up, taking up as an ownership. They are trying to think of what about my customers? Instead of how can I deliver to what value we can add to the customer. So these kind of fundamental shifts are coming, which is coming in terms of as a ownership. Like you own that product, you can add values to the customer. And when a team is basically they feels that they own that particular product, the innovations naturally comes within them. There are other aspects also traditional GCC was more focused on this output driven rather than that outcomes. That there is a fundamental difference between this output and outcome. When we are talking about output, what is happening? We are more focused on delivering or meeting that SLAs. We are more focused on that, meeting the timelines, how fast we are delivering it to the customer. So all those of velocities and speed and all everything is coming up. They're not adding any value in terms of this customer's product, right? So that's where that ownerships is coming up. They're not very user centric, they're not very customer driven. So that's a fundamental shift that is coming up. And I think with that product led GCCs, that outcomes is more important compared to the output. The third aspects I would like to highlight is basically the customer proxy. So what is that customer proxy? Is basically like when the traditional GCC was formed, as Samantha mentioned, like it was more focused on reducing the value cost, right? So that they can get things delivered in with a very small, with a low cost, right? So that's why what they have done is basically they have shifted that mostly the customers resides in maybe somewhere else, primarily in US or UK. They're shifting their tasks to India or some other countries where they can get the low value cost. So that's there because of this distance. It is very difficult for the team to reach to that particular customer and get the feedback immediately as and when required, and that creates a complete distance between these customers and the developers, right? When it is coming into this product led GCCs, what happens like the team is not working in terms of as a distance. They are collaborating with customer. They're getting constant feedback. They're engaging with this customer. So they are feeling it like whenever that feedback is coming, that feedback is coming is instantaneously. And innovation is not only like you need to innovate something, you need rather learn it from the customers or learn it from the failure and correct it as soon as possible. So with that, I can say like yes, the shift has happened, and product-led GCCs are much more innovative compared to the traditional GCCs. I hope I have been able to answer Anshuman to your questions. And over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kaushik. You actually very aptly answered the questions. I mean, we are looking for such specific answers on this, and we received that. And the way you have distinguished between the product led and the traditional GCCs was really eye-opening, I'm sure, for many of us. Uh, and these kinds of brings us to the end of round one, where we have discussed things elaborately with people, spoken their heart out, and we all have been highly, enriched by your answer. At least I can say from my perspective that I have been uh, very attentively listening to all of you and kind of taking notes on this. Thank you very much. Now we'll move to our second round, and just for the interest of time, and we would do very specific answers to the questions. Okay. We would start with Rajiv again. And Rajiv, in a very short 30 seconds, what would be your take when are highly regulated industries like insurance? How would you balance a startup agility versus the industry governance and compliance requirements?
Right. As I said in my previous answer also, right? Now, what the GCC ecosystem and has done is that it has enabled the large enterprises to actually innovate uh, within a framework where the regulatory compliances can be relaxed, so that you build a so that you build a solution with a startup or in your own GCC environment, build a solution, and then slowly add your you know your compliance parameters, and then try to scale it up. So that enablement has happened, and we are seeing it in our insurance industry. It is kind of why, and the reason why this works is that inside the GCC, right, the regulatory oversight is already built in, right, and you do not expose it to the whole of the customer yet, right, and you can do a faster iteration, right, and you can do, and at the end you can do a full compliance, instead of having the whole compliance thing, with a burden in the very beginning, you add it up, later, right, and slowly you can do that. And the other thing is that, you know co-creation, right, with the insurers and the big insurers also co-creating with various startups, right, so you do the joint venture labs, you do, uh, accelerator hubs, right? So there you focus on a particular business problem, try to solve it, and then with the GCC and with the enterprise or the large enterprise behind you, you can scale it up across, across the industry and across the geographies. So that is happening already. So it is not that always compliance or the regulations is a bottleneck. It is not always the case. In fact, the companies have realized that this is a kind of a win-win kind of a situation where we can build solutions and then slowly scale it up in the innovation hubs, in the GCCs, partnering with the startups, and then, to move ahead. Various large insurance companies have done that. So Swiss Re has done that. Chubb has done that. Chubb is collaborating with T Hub in uh, Hyderabad. Swiss Re has done that. Hartford has done it. Uh, AIG has done it. So there are, various large, insurance organizations which has been doing that, and slowly
Thank you.
from here, then we are,
Great,
scaling it up.
great, Amlan. Knowing that these are already happening and this is not really a barrier or prohibitive, that's a reassurance for us. Thank you very much. I'll move to Amlan here, and my quick question to you: do you see startups and the GCCs are competing for the same digital talent in the market and competing for the same budget that the GCC mother company would have? What is your quick take on that?
Absolutely. I think this is very important question that I'll just take 2 minutes. First, I will respond in terms of whether uh, 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 they go for the same perspective on uh, building the GCCs. So you need to understand two things from a perspective is strategically critically at a who owns the customer promise, speed versus scale, right? What matters to entertain enterprise the right now, and third is data sensitivity. How risky is this? So there could be multiple different other parameters, but if you think about these top three parameters, we'll understand your second question specifically, that is it built via GCC or built via startups? If I talk about the first one, strategy critically, who owns the customer promise? Now, if uh, 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 the capability defines that how do you compete? If you answer this question, it is going to be defined by a GCCs. Anything on the core commerce platform, like I talked about in my previous example on the Walmart, on the core commerce platform, or in anything on the on your inventory optimization, it has to be defined by the GCCs. Now, if you talk about the enterprise layer, something which is adjacent to your core, uh, as a fundamental rule normally, but there could be deviations on the different shape and form of the need. Ideally, it has to be defined, or it can be given to the startups to do that. So similar, if I come from a speed versus scale perspective, if you are looking for a scale, resiliency, uh, uh, for example, if I talk about the target where the pricing, I talked about in my last example on the pricing perspective, where the price change with the billions of transactions going to happen, and it has a three or four things at stake, be it your brand, be it your customer NPS score, be it your total cost of ownership, all these things when comes at stake, GCC will take these things on its own hand. If anything on the loyalty or the promotion, it has to be on a GCC perspective, considering that they are supporting the holiday weekend. Now, when your startups will come into the question, when the velocity of learning needs to be very high rather than resiliency. So anything time to value or time to go to the market is very limited because you are going for a faster competition. It has to be on the startups. That's the bottom, more of a fundamental perspective, fundamental rule that we see every day when we converse with the Indian-based GCCs or Romanian-based GCCs. But there are certain changes, certain deviations, obviously, is going to be there. But this is more of a fundamental. Now, coming back to the first question, Anshuman, that you have asked from a talent perspective and the innovation budget, I wanted to give a little bit perspective to the audience that uh, they do compete both from the budget and the innovation perspective. But remember one thing, that is they are not substitute, which means the reason to attract the talent is different from GCC perspective and then startup perspective. And the same is from an innovation budget perspective. When I talk about the talent from a GCC, they look for the ownership. They look for more from a speed, right? The startups look for more from a speed perspective. They look from a problem solving at the greenfield perspective. They look from an equity upside perspective. So that means they attract talent more from a early in the career, who has better take of risk, who has more risk, not risk averse, more of a risk taking, risk appetite. Builders who are can be an experimentation journey, not from more from a stability. Whereas on the talent perspective for the GCCs, they are looking more from a depth of the problem solving. They don't look for the width, but they look from a depth, scale of the impact, or career longevity, and skill compounding. So that means they more from a GCCs, they attract to mid to senior level of technologists or consulting folks. They move more from a looking for a talent who can optimize for stability, for influence. So anything on a depth, you go for GCC. Anything on a speed, velocity, you go for specifically on startups. Same from a budgeting perspective. If you go from a structural innovation perspective, anything more from a reliability, scalability, robustness, you go from a GCC led. So anything on an edge innovation perspective, you go from a small box time budget. Often pilot-based projects happen. Often high failure tolerance. You go from a startup-led perspective. That's the 2 cents from my side, Shuma.
Thank you, Amlan, for the quick and innovative answer. Interesting answer for me. I go quickly to Kaushik, and a simple question to you, Kaushik. When you are building a platform, how you decide to build it in-house or build it with partners? What are the three quick things you will check? And if you can answer this in 30 seconds.
Yeah, sure, Anshuman. If I'm comfortable, yes. So I think Omlan has quite well covered most of the part, and some of these things is also comes when we are taking a call whether it is to build or buy it. The basically, I would like to add one more things, that is that core versus the context. What is this core versus the context? Is like, if anything, which is basically it's a core competency of your applications, like whether it is for the your own proprietary information, like you understand your customers better and you wanted to deliver some things for the customers, that you always go for build, because that's a core part. Okay, but anything which is not so relevant or not associated, like for example in our case of e-procurement systems, like anything associated with e-procurement we build it, but whenever it is coming into that other surrounding component, which is related to, let's say, that adoption of this Gen AI, okay, adoption of this some ERP module. So in those cases, we always go for the uh, that buy kind of approach, okay. And not only this speed, there is a control also. Like if we wanted to get some control, so we always considered to be kept it as a like a build it on ourselves, because we wanted to be more governance on this one. Whereas like if we want to fit in some components which is industry ready, which is industry is demanding, some such as kind of analytics and all these things, we always go for like whatever the readily available, whether it is from startup or whether it is from the market. The third things is like also that comes into the ecosystems leverage. So these are the 3 points I would like to highlight, Anshuman.
Thank you, Kaushik. A brilliant answer in a short span. I will move to Somnath. And question to you, Somnath, is that we've spoken about a lot about the collaboration between GCCs and startups and how we co-create values, etc. But when it comes to such collaboration, what do you think are the challenges here? Culture, speed, risk appetite, agility. What do you think are the most important aspects you have to keep in mind when you are thinking of such collaboration?
So I think quick answer to this is all of this. Okay. You have mentioned all of this, but if you have to segregate, like in a priority order, or you have to say what is the top, what are the top two, correct? I would say first is culture. Because you see, when you have, and why I'm saying it's culture, because if you take the GCC, they are not of small companies, right? Big companies are understanding the value of offshoring. That's why they came to offshore. And then they understood the value of innovation. So they are changing into GCCs, right? Their mindset is changing. But they have been big based on a culture. And that culture is of a prolonged period of time, right? If you see, it is this culture only that because of which they have been where they are today, correct? Now comes a smaller organization, which they would say hasn't got any culture at all from their perspective. Like you have just been born to a startup, right? How much of time you have seen. So this enterprise bureaucracy versus the speed which somebody wants to bring, faster decision making, right? Whether to take cautious steps, correct? These are all DNA based thing in an organization. So culture is the first thing. Second thing that comes is what I would say is more, it's a little more bent, inclined on the enterprises, big enterprises at GCC side. That is the leadership role. See what happens when you are, because it's a change, it's a huge change in the way you look at things, right? The commitment can be there, right? But the consistency may not be there over a period of time, right? So I think Amlan mentioned this, and there is this, and I think this came up several times during this discussion, the pilots, right? So if you look at the pilots, what happens is most of these things die in the pilot phase. It's called, there's a term which is getting used, which is called, I think, pilot purgatory, which is like it's you are never maturing beyond the pilot, or you are always using a startup for a pilot. that is not the right way to use a startup, right? So you'll have to change your mindset to understand the goodness of the startup. So that change in mindset of the leadership, not just have commitment to start, but the consistency to take it to that finishing line. The bigger vision should not get lost. So I would say these two are the biggest challenges. Then there are others as well, but I think if you can solve these two, the others will start falling in place.
Sure. Thank you very much for this candid answer, Somnath. Now we'll move to our most interesting part of the panel discussion today. Uh, you're familiar with this structure, the rapid fire. I have three questions for each of our panelists, and we expect answers in one word or in yes only. So I start with Somnath since we are continuing here. Somnath, first question, one word. How do you define a GCC today? Cost center or an innovation hub or anything else?
Okay, I would say it's a journey, but I would say it is, if I have to choose, I would say it is towards innovation hub. If I may use this phrase, it's a journey.
Great,
They are shifting, but it is towards innovation hub. That's definitely is the destination that they're looking at.
great answer. Uh, Partnerships, is it overhyped or underrated in today's world?
I would say, okay, let us first see. It is need of the hour, right? Whether you are calling it overhyped or underrated, it is the need of the hour, right? Uh, if you are looking at the big picture, I would say a little bit of a hype is there because everybody is trying to jump into the bandwagon, just like everybody is trying to utilize AI, right? But
Mhm.
I would say that this hype would die. You'll have to give it a little more time. It would die, and more so with faster technologies, responsive technologies like AI into the mix. This hype would die, but it is a little on the hype side right now. Need of the hour, it
Okay,
is a little on the hype side.
so we are moving towards reality. And last question to you. Startups for GCCs, are they accelerators or disruptors?
Right now, accelerators. There is no doubt. This is the answer. But give it a couple of years, you would see disruptions from big companies using this partnership. So it would go
Great,
there.
very
But right now, it is definitely accelerator.
okay. Next, I'll move to Omlan and we'll look at from a retail CPG e-commerce lens.
Mhm.
Uh, Customer experience, built in-house or startup led? What's your take?
I would take go for a startup led at the current context. It has because startup will give a lot much innovation compared to the current GCC context, and it is going to be very fast. They will build
Next
it very
question,
fast.
retail disruption, driven more by GCCs or startups? How do you see that?
I'll say by the GCCs.
This is quite contrary to my understanding, but you are an expert. I go by your opinion. Last question, speed versus scale. What wins in the digital commerce?
It depends. It's actually both. So speed, when there is a speed needs, obviously I would go for the startups. When I need scale, I would go for the GCCs. There is no right or wrong here.
Much for the answer again. Move to Rajiv. Moving to Rajiv. Rajiv, your questions. First question is innovation in insurance. Is it incremental or disruptive? How do you see that?
As of now, I would say it is incremental. But yes, as you know, I think Somnath already said, you give it a few years down the line, it might become disruptive.
Sure. Uh, Compliance versus agility. What slows innovation more?
Uh, there is no right or wrong answer to this, right? Because compliance in the insurance industry is of utmost important, and there is no denying that fact. But as I said, when you build a solution in a startup kind of a mode with a innovation and with agility, then slowly you add to it the regulatory and the compliance features, and then you build a product out of it. So it is kind of a journey. There is no right or wrong answer to it, I would say.
Okay. InsurTechs, how do you see them today? Your partners or the competitors tomorrow?
Well, as of now, it can be a bit of both, in the sense that because as partners they are technology enablers. They are they provide external say, capacity, because many insurtechs acts as a MGAs, right? Which who then rely on the big insurance companies. And from a, as I think Omnan already said, from a customer experience standpoint, insurtechs and startups, they bring in more better digital experiences, for personalized products and
Thank
all.
you.
So it is
Uh,
more of a partner now, but yes, they can be competitors. I will just take 10 more seconds. Like say, for example, in India, we have the Echo Insurance, right? So Echo Insurance has made it big. Digit Insurance has also made it big. So they are now also playing, and they are also taking a chunk of the pie. Yeah.
right. Thank you very much. Moving to my last panelist and last set of questions for today. Kaushik, first questions from your product and platform experience. Build versus buy versus partner. Which idea you will pick given a new situation?
Yeah, Anshuman, I would go for not to pick one, but to actually orchestrate it. And we have to build it, build the core component, and then we have to buy the commodity, especially that those are standard product in the market. And of course, we have to partner whenever there is an edge kind of computing is coming up.
Very candid answer, Kaushik. Next questions. Are GCCs really ready for the product thinking? Yes or no?
Uh, To some extent, yes, but not all GCCs are so far like ready for the product thinking because it requires a certain changes mindset and also changes in the team structure.
We keep hearing this platform-led strategy, platform-led growth. How do you see it? Is it a buzzword or is it a reality?
No, platform is actually a reality, but it becomes a buzzword when like you build an application, but then actually it is not scalable, right? It doesn't have that associated API, so you are not able to use it, and you are not able to plug it. So you need to think like platform as a platform, which has the capability of expanding, capability of increasing. So I would go for it's actually a reality. It's not a buzzword, and it's a need actually.
This brings to the end of our discussion today. My heartfelt thanks to each of the panelists and each of the participant audience who are there. I know that we have overshoot the time grossly, but at the same time, I'm quite sure that all the answers we have heard people explaining those in very clear terms has been very enriching. So I'm sure this time is well spent today. And though it's a Sunday after morning, people who have put their time in. I have time maybe for one or two questions. So the first questions, Abhishek Sarkar. Abhishek, if you can put your question uh, quickly, and if you can identify from whom you are expecting the answer, or if you want
Yeah,
me
yeah,
to
yeah.
identify them.
Yeah. Particularly to you, Anshumanda, and others also can give insight. It is not particular to GCC, little bit related to GCC. That is, people used to say ACZ, lack of ACZ. That is why the West Bengal IT industry growth is slow. Okay, so my particular question to you and other industry expert. So after GST implementation across India, what is the exact significance of ACZ, and particularly to the software exported from the all these tech parks, not from the like any car dealership who sells the car. Okay, particularly for the software which are exported from the any tech park. Okay, and after GST implementation across India, what is the exact significance of SEZ? Anshumanda, can you please give some insight about it?
I can take, but I would approach Somnath for this if he can add a few quick uh, bullet points on this.
So I think, see, the significance of the SEZs are that, you know, I mean, it is to be said that with the latest GST structures and everything, still, I think there is a vantage point. There is no doubt about it. Okay. Uh, for example, if you go, even if you consider big organizations, even behemoths like Microsoft or let's say Google or Amazon, right? And if there's a proposition to do it in the downtown versus doing it a little far off and getting some exemptions, I think they would be going for anybody would be going for it. The more the scale, the more is the inclination to go towards the ACC. There is no doubt, right? Either you build up your own and or you go to the ACC. And if you can build that in the ACC, if you build your own campus in the ACC, nothing like that. So the significance of ACC is there, right?
Yeah, that is there. I'm asking particularly to the tax benefit and other financial benefit. Okay, this particular question, Anshumanda or others, please give the insight. I'm not at all denying SEZ is useless. Particularly to the tax benefit and other financial benefit, what SEZ now carries after GST implementation across India. Anshumanda?
See, if you're looking from a GCC perspective, and GCC means you're exporting services, the concept of GST does not really come much. Okay, only through certain indirect manners. And I have seen, I mean, it's my experience that over the years, the importance of GCC has, the SEZs has been kind of diminishing. Okay, there are other benefits companies are getting, the state governments are bringing in. Uh, so I don't think it's anymore a major driving force uh, apart from a certain pockets. Uh, but is it completely irrelevant? I don't think it's there yet because there are long-term SECs commitments, or there are already companies and this is built on those promises. I don't think it's fading away. But maybe for a new venture, SECs may not be a very important drivers.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for this clarity.
Any
Okay,
other
thank
question?
you.
Probably can take only one more question. Or if not, then we happily can conclude this very enriching discussion. I personally have been highly benefited. Lot of insights I have received, and I'm sure I'll go back to the recordings of that and listen this multiple times. Till that time, we meet again. My heartfelt thanks to each of the participants, to Subhabrata for organizing this wonderful event
Thank you.
and the
Thank you.
series, not only this, but the whole series. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
What is Subhabrata? And
Yeah.
thank you very much for
Yeah. Thank you
the
so much.
opportunity
Right. I
to
know that
moderate.
sometime we had to stop you because of the time crunch, and I know that like the industry stalwarts like you, there is we cannot really limit you with a kind of timeline, right? So apologies for that, but I'm sure like all of you have spoken really well, and we have got a lot of insights from you guys. And moving forward, I'm sure like we'll have some fireside chat with all of you where you'll get plenty of time to explain your answer and share your point of views. So thank you, Amlan. Thank you, Somnath, Rajiv, Kaushik, and of course, Shumanda for steering this conversation so nicely. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks
Thank
all.
you.
It was
My
a
pleasure.
great
Thank you,
experience
everyone.
on a Sunday morning.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you,
have
everyone.
started on a very positive note. Thank you all.